The Two Gardens, the mother's wisdom on love, marriage, and staying yourself. Margaret sat beside her daughter on the porch swing, watching the last guests depart from the wedding reception. Sarah's veil lay draped over the railing, catching the golden light of late afternoon. The house felt both emptier and fuller than it had in years. "Mom," Sarah said softly, "can I ask you something?" Margaret smiled, knowing that tone. It was the same one Sarah had used at 16 when asking about heartbreak. At 22 when considering graduate school. The voice of someone standing at a threshold. "Of course, darling. How do you stay yourself when you're married? I love David so much. But I keep thinking, will I lose parts of me? Will he? How did you and Dad do it?" Margaret was quiet for a moment, the swing creaking gently beneath them. "Let me tell you about the garden," she finally said. Sarah looked puzzled. "The garden? When your father and I first married, I thought love meant tending the same plot of earth together. Planting the same seeds, watering at the same times. For a while, I stopped painting. I thought being a good wife meant putting everything into us. I didn't know you stopped painting. For almost 3 years, Margaret's voice held the weight of those lost years. Your father never asked me to. I just assumed. One evening, he found me crying in the kitchen. I couldn't even explain why. He sat with me for an hour before I finally whispered, I miss who I was." Sarah squeezed her mother's hand. "Do you know what he said?" Margaret continued. "He said, I married an artist who loved color and wildness. I didn't marry you so you could disappear into me." The next weekend, he cleared out the sunroom for a studio. Not because I asked, but because he understood something I hadn't yet learned. What was that? That love isn't about becoming one person. It's about two people choosing, every day, to walk alongside each other while still walking their own paths. Margaret turned to face her daughter fully. Your father has his woodworking. Thursday evenings, that's his time in the workshop. Saturday mornings, I paint. We don't apologize for these hours. We celebrate them. Sarah nodded slowly. But what about the life you share? Oh, that's the beautiful part, Margaret's eyes brightened. Because we each have our own gardens to tend. Our own purposes, our own growth, we have so much more to bring back to each other. Sunday afternoons, we walk together. And tell each other what we discovered in our separate hours. He describes the grain of the wood he's working. I tell him about the way light hit the canvas. We're not identical, but we're connected. Did you ever feel guilty? Taking that time? At first, terribly, Margaret admitted. But your father taught me something about gratitude that changed everything. He said gratitude isn't just being thankful for what you have. It's honoring what you have by living fully. If I loved painting, then not painting was a betrayal of the gift I'd been given. If he loved woodworking, then abandoning it would be wasting his talents. She paused, watching a cardinal land on the fence. Marriage, at its best, isn't about sacrifice. It's about creating space for both people to flourish. The gratitude comes from witnessing each other's growth, from having a partner who says, "Go, be fully yourself, and then come home and tell me about it." What if we want different things sometimes? You will, Margaret said matter-of-factly. But here's what I've learned over 37 years. Your purpose won't always look the same. When you were babies, my purpose shifted toward motherhood. But I still painted, even if just for 20 minutes while you napped. When Dad's company downsized, his purpose became providing, but he never abandoned his workshop. Now that you're grown, we're discovering new purposes again. Like what? I'm teaching art to seniors at the community center. Your father's building furniture for families who lost everything in last year's fire. These weren't our purposes at 30, but they're deeply meaningful to us now. Marriage gave us the stability to evolve. Sarah leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. I want that. For both of us to keep growing. Then make that the promise, Margaret said gently. Not, I'll never change, but I'll always make room for you to become. Check in with each other. Ask, what lights you up right now? What are you hungry to learn or do? Let those answers change. Celebrate when they do. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky deepened to purple. Finally, Sarah spoke again. Thank you, Mom, for telling me this now. You know what I'm grateful for? Margaret asked. That I get to tell you. That I learned these lessons early enough to share them. That's its own kind of purpose, passing along what took me years to understand. Sarah smiled. Maybe one day I'll sit with my daughter and tell her about 2 gardens and 1 shared path. And you'll tell it better than I did, with your own wisdom added. Margaret kissed her daughter's forehead. That's what makes me most proud. Not that you're married, but that you're asking these questions. You're starting with awareness that took me years to find. As the evening stars emerged, mother and daughter remained on the swing, rocking gently. 2 women at different stages of the same journey. Connected by love and the shared understanding that finding your purpose isn't a destination. It's a practice, renewed daily, celebrated together, and honored alone. The garden would grow. The path would wind. And that, Margaret knew, was exactly as it should be.